Hello, it's Abby again, and welcome back to my YouTube series, Write a Fantasy Novel with Me. This is the third episode, and if you haven't checked out the other ones, you don't have to, but if they interest you, then go ahead. And today we're going to be talking about how I fleshed out my main character, and how I wrote her and how I wrote her in detail. Which, speaking of, I have my first chapter of my book written, and I'm going to be posting a video after each chapter. After I finish whatever I'm doing, like for example, the last video when I was introducing you to Milanote, if I finished my Milanote stuff, like anything I was going to show you, if I finished that, then I'll do it after that. So this isn't right after I finished the chapter. It's been a few hours at least. And anyways, we're gonna get into how I fleshed out my character. Um it was For me it was easy because I had only a faint idea on what I wanted to write about, and so I looked up like certain ways on how to flesh out what your idea was or what to write about or things like that. And actually me creating my character brought along the plot of the story. Like I fleshed out my character before I started writing the story, but I changed her name. Her name was originally going to be Aiden, but I decided her name should be Willow instead. I don't really know where that change came along and why I decided to change it, but that's a thing. And the first thing we're gonna go through is um, just like whatever first comes to your mind. So what I did is, when I thought fantasy character, I closed my eyes and I thought of a girl, and she was magically floating a plant or something, like a flower. That's kind of how the plot came to be, I think, is because my book is called The Abbey Flower, and it's about a magical flower. It doesn't really float, but I think that's where the idea came from. But I decided to create this girl who is a magical gardener. So she gardens in like magical gardens with magical plants, and she uses her magic and all that. And she's very smart. And I basically fleshed her out from there, like what I would think that character would do. So if, for example, when I looked at her, she looked like super beautiful. So I decided she was super beautiful, but then she was super smart. I don't know how that came to be, but she takes like all the classes at her school, and so all of that, all the personality traits. She's also super friendly, and that's how she becomes friends with the other different types of species and all that. And so basically the first step is just closing your eyes and think of fantasy or fictional, if you're not writing fantasy, fictional or fantasy characters. And when you close your eyes, what do you see? And that's what I saw. That's the first thing that came to mind. Don't think too much about it, just do the first thing that came to mind and then flesh it out from there. The second way is going to use Art Breeder. And I think I talked a little bit about Art Breeder last episode when I was showing you my Milanote, and I was showing you the characters I created on Art Breeder. And Art Breeder is a website. It's also free, just like Milanote, and you can make fantasy worlds, and you can make fantasy characters, and you can make it's supposed to be a furry creator, if you know what a furry is, but I used it to create my wolf-like creatures that are in my books. And you can create anime characters and like gameplay characters and all that stuff, and then you just like choose what it is, and you choose which picture you think is the closest, and you can change the settings to make it look like how you want it. So like there's a setting that's like how much Asian, how much like Middle Eastern, like different races, like all that, and you choose how much of it is in there to try to make the character look like how it is. There are other ones too, but that's just an example. And just fiddle around with those settings until you get a character that you like, and again flesh it out from there. So say you have this character with bright pink hair and she looks like an elf, then you can do a bright pink haired elf and flesh her out from there, which is also a very fun way to make characters. I think I wrote one of my background characters based off of a character I created on Artbreeder, and she isn't a super big part in the series, but she does appear a few times. Actually, two of my characters were inspired by these two like different things I created on Artbreeder. Akuji and Amalia, and that all came from Artbreeder, so that's a fun way to create it. Or you could do the next thing, which is creating a character based off of a species. What I mean by this is like my elves. My elves are based strictly off of two different types of elves. There's like tree elves that like live in the trees, and there's warrior elves, and I kind of mixed that together. So they live in the trees, but they dress like the warrior elves, if that makes sense. So you can take different types of the one species that you want this character to be, and you can merge it together and create the character that you want. I have two main elf characters, and it's Ollie and Olivia, and they are brother and sister. And I have not decided if they're going to be related to my main character, Willow, or if they are going to be not, because her father is an elf and they are elves. I don't want to give too much away, just in case I am able to publish this book, which we'll talk more about that later, but not on this video though, on some other video, because that's not what this is about. The fourth way is creating a character that's strictly based only off of a species. So it doesn't even have to be this species. So for example, if you pick a fairy, but you're making it a human. So this isn't fact. I'm just using this as an example. So if the thing that you're reading about fairies says they only have platinum blonde hair, then you can make your character with platinum blonde hair, if that makes sense. If not, I'm sorry, because I don't make sense. But if you get what I mean, that's what you can do. And the fifth way, which is going to be my last way, and the last way that I would ever use to create characters. I didn't use all of these methods in my book, but I might, and I might come back to this video for reference. And anyways, creating something that is something that has a lot of stereotypes, a species that has a lot of stereotypes, but creating it for what it actually is, or outside of those stereotypes if it is actually what those stereotypes say. So for example, like the witches in my book, like stereotypes are like they're like old people with like warts and they have green skin and all that. But if you go outside of the stereotypes, then mine are like super young people who are super beautiful or whatever, if that makes sense. And then again, if none of them make sense, I might have to do an in-depth video on each of the things separately, how to do them, examples, creating random characters for myself, while showing you, if that makes sense. Thank you for watching. This has been a sort of short video, but I don't think it's been as short as my other ones. And I did get a lot of information in, no matter how long it was. And so, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I don't know if comments are on. Still, never know. If they are, notify me that they're on. But watch the next video, watch the other ones in the series if you are interested in them, and goodbye.